At first glance, one could be forgiven for mistaking this unusual-looking plant as being somehow related to the cactus. However, it is in fact the aloe vera plant, one of more than 300 varieties and a member of the lily and onion family. Apart from its unusual appearance, the leaves themselves contain nutrients and pharmaceutical properties, which have been used for centuries in the treatment of many different health problems throughout the world. The aloe vera plant is, without question, one of nature's true natural medicines. It's become a source of comfort and relief for many people. And it's because of this that it's gained the imagination and respect of many medical practitioners. Apart from aloe vera's medical benefits for humans, some veterinary surgeons have also discovered this plant's hidden qualities. One such person is David Urch, a veterinary surgeon who has his own practice in Rington in Somerset. David became interested in complementary medicine in his early years as a vet and started by using homeopathy and herbal remedies. After reading several articles in veterinary journals, he started to use aloe vera in 1995 and was delighted to find a success rate of up to 80% in his treatment of horses suffering with post-viral lethargy syndrome. Apart from his success with treating animals, David's also found relief for himself with an arthritic-related neck problem, which he'd suffered for a number of years following a car crash. From this short introduction, let's now sit back and listen to David Urch himself as he tells us more about this fascinating plant and its remarkable properties.
As you've heard, aloe vera is a cactus-looking plant, but in fact it is a member of the lily family. There are in fact over 300 varieties. They come originally from Africa. 4 in particular have medicinal properties. This is Aloe barbadensis Miller, Aloe peribaker, Aloe ferox Miller and Aloe arborescens. The one we normally use is Aloe barbadensis Miller. As you can see, the plant has a very thick outer skin. It's 15 cells thick. Underneath this layer, which actually does the production of the nutrients, there is a transport system which is consisting of xylem and phloem. Underneath this layer there's a mucilage layer, and this stores some of the nutrients, but the majority are stored in the parenchyma tissue below this layer, and this is also known as a gel, and it's a gel which is used in most of the medicinal products. The plant has a lifespan of about 12 years. But it's mature at 4 years, and at this time you can start to take off the outer leaves and extract the gel. Each leaf is about 2 feet long, but they also form a flowering stem which has seeds, but also they do form pups or suckers. The aloe vera plant is in fact has a very long history. It's been known for a very, very long time. And in fact, in 4000 BC there are records on Egyptian temple carvings of this plant. But it wasn't actually until 1750 BC that the first pharmaceutical properties were reported on some Sumerian clay tablets. It's mentioned throughout the Greek, Roman and Greek civilizations. The Chinese used it extensively, mentioned several times in the Bible, and used throughout Mediterranean countries. But it wasn't in fact until the 1800s that it started to be used in the UK. It was from Jamaica, and an industry was set up to actually process the plant and distribute it throughout the world. At that time it wasn't thought pure enough for use in people, so it was mainly used in animals. In 1840 was one of the first reports of its use in animals. It was called Cape aloes or horse aloes, and in this year FD Day published Day's Everyday Farriery. It wasn't unusual in those times for the farrier to be thought of as the local veterinary surgeon, and if you had a problem with your horse or your farm animal, you tended to take it to the farrier. In this book it tells you about aloe physic balls, aloe purging drenches and aloe topical preparations which were used to treat skin conditions and digestive upsets, worming problems in many species. Also of interest was the fact that it was used extensively in the horse for treating a condition known as psoriasis, which people also suffer from, also known as rat tails, and we commonly call it melanders or salanders in the horse, and it's where you get a psoriasis condition behind the knee or in front of the hock. In 1950, Gottschall studied the effects of aloe vera on tuberculosis, and he found that aloe vera could inhibit the growth of this bacteria. In 1953, Lushborough and Hales studied radiation burns in small animals and found that they could get a good heal in 2 months with topical aloe vera, but if they didn't use aloe vera, it took 4 months and it still wasn't healed at that time. In 1959, Ravetti and Brennan studied thermal burns in small animals, and in those treated with aloe vera, they were healed within 2 weeks. During the 1960s, a number of independent laboratories in America looked at the toxicity values of aloe vera, and they all concluded that there were no measurable levels of toxicity. In 1975, a very interesting clinical study was carried out by a veterinary surgeon on 76 clinical cases. These were mainly skin diseases and ear problems, dermatitis and allergies, eczemas, and he found that in 95% of these cases he got good to excellent results when he used topical aloe vera, and in 16% he got better than what he got with his normal topical preparations. In 1976, Bill Coates published The Silent Healer, which is an excellent reference book for the human conditions which can be treated with aloe vera. In 1983, Danoff studied the growth of cells in wounds and found that the growth rate was increased by about 8 times. In 1985, Bill Coates and Richard Holland published Creatures in Our Care, which is a very good reference book for all the conditions affecting many species of animals, from birds through dogs, cats, horses and farm animals. In 1996, Syed published an article on psoriasis in people. He looked at 60 patients. Their ages ranged from 18 to 50 years old, and some of them had the condition for 20 years, and he found that in over 80% of cases there was a cure by using topical aloe vera. In 1996, Green published an article in the Veterinary Times on post-viral lethargy syndrome and skin diseases in the horse, and he found that in 83% of the horses that he treated with oral aloe vera, they made a full recovery, and he also had very good results in treating skin diseases. In 1996, Peter Atherton published The Essential Aloe Vera, and in 1997, Peter Atherton also published a very interesting article in Positive Health, which relates to people and the use of aloe vera.
Many researchers and medical practitioners have scientifically and clinically proved the aloe vera's medical properties. So let's now look at what nutrients are contained within the leaves of this unusual plant.
Aloe vera contains 75 identified nutrients to date, and they fall into 10 main groupings. The first is the lignin. These are the skin penetrators, which enables the product to get down into the deeper dermal layers of the skin. The saponins, these are antiseptic soapy substances which cleanse the skin. They're also antimicrobial. The anthraquinones, there are in fact 12 of these. They're quite an important group because these are the ones which were known for their laxative and purging properties. Anthracene is well known for its anti-inflammatory properties. It's related to dimethyl sulfoxide, which is used quite extensively in the horse. It's also antimicrobial in properties, and it was one of the first groups to be identified in 1851. The mineral group, there are in fact 8 minerals present: calcium, potassium, sodium, copper, zinc, chromium. Vitamins are 11. The important ones are the vitamins A, C and E, which are the antioxidants. These actually remove free radicals from your body, and free radicals are substances which are produced by your metabolism when you break down your foods, also from pollutants and sunlight. They're also present are the B vitamins, B1, B2, B6 and B12. B12 is particularly important because vegans and vegetarians need this in their diets, and there are only 2 plant sources which contain B12, and aloe vera is one of them. The amino acids, there are 22 amino acids which the body needs. 20 of them are actually present in aloe vera. There are 8 essential which the body also needs, and of those 8, all are present. Bill Coates, in fact, identified the last one in 1985. There are also at least 5 enzymes present. These help to break down the dead cells, particularly from your skin. Fatty acids are present. These are the plant steroids. They are anti-inflammatory and antiseptic. Also present is salicylic acid. This you'll probably better know as aspirin, and this helps not only in the fact that it's antipyretic, but also it helps to remove dead cells from your skin. The sugars, which are probably one of the most important groups, contain monosaccharides and polysaccharides, and in particular the mucopolysaccharides. And glucose mannose, which has the ace-mannan component, this has been shown to have immunostimulant properties. Ace-mannan, as can be seen in this diagram, plays a very central role. You have stem bone marrow cells which either are thymus processed or bursa processed. Bursa referring to lymphoid tissue, particularly in your intestines, but the thymus side of it, the stem cells are converted into T lymphocytes, and on the bursa side they're converted into B lymphocytes. When you are exposed to an antigen, the T lymphocytes convert into lymphoblasts and the B lymphocytes into plasma cells. The ace-mannan has been shown to help the cooperation between the T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes, so that these B lymphocytes can produce antibodies, and it's antibodies which kill the bacteria or viruses which are invading your body. Also, these mucopolysaccharides have non-immunological properties. They line the digestive system, which helps prevent toxins from being absorbed. They also aid absorption of your metabolites from your digestive system. They protect your cells, they lubricate your joints, and they help with fluid flow. They also help with gaseous exchange in your lungs. So what are the overall actions of these 75 nutrients? The first is the synergistic effect that they have. It is known that the effect of all these individual components together in the gel is greater than if you added them up individually, and that's synergism. Secondly, they are adaptogenic, which means that your body or an animal's body will take different parts out of the gel which it needs to help a particular condition it's suffering from. It promotes also the feeling of well-being in people. In animals it's difficult to actually say what that is, but basically we talk about bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in animals, meaning that they have a nice glossy coat, they have a wet nose, shiny eyes, they're alert, good appetite, so it promotes a feeling of well-being in them as well. It also, as I said earlier, is antioxidant, and this is very important because it helps our body to dispose of the free radicals that we're actually exposed to on a daily basis. We're exposed to them from the metabolism of our foods, sunlight, pollutants, and it helps us to get rid of these. The actual types of action which aloe shows are 14 in number. The first is that it provides essential nutrients for our bodies and animals' bodies. It helps to cleanse our skin. It helps to get agents to penetrate our skin. It moisturizes our skin. It also helps to break down the dead tissues on our skin, and it increases blood flow. It increases cell division. It acts as a natural local anesthetic, and it's antimicrobial. And by antimicrobial I mean that not only does it affect bacteria, it also affects viruses, fungi, and in particular it affects yeasts. It's antipyretic, so it lowers your temperature. It's anti-inflammatory, and therefore it's antipyretic, which means it stops the itching, which is associated with a lot of conditions that we see in animals. And very importantly, it has no known side effects. So what actually are the sites of action of aloe vera in our bodies? Well, in fact, it only works in two areas. It works on our immune system. It helps to regulate and modulate our immunity. If it's too active or underactive or inappropriate, it will balance this system. It also helps with epithelial tissue. And epithelial tissues are a layer of cells which covers the surface of our bodies, or a lining which lines a cavity which connects with that. So it's your skin, it's your oral cavity, your respiratory system, urinary systems and genital systems. So what type of products do I actually use in veterinary practice? The important point is that they are based on the stabilised aloe vera gel. This needs to be as near to what comes out from the inside of the plant as possible. And it has been now possible to actually stabilise the gel using 10 other plant sources. This makes the gel 97% with only 3% stabiliser. and there are in fact 10 natural plant sources in here which stabilise the product. Sorbitol, which comes from corn, ascorbic acid, which is in fact vitamin C, citric acid from citrus fruits, sodium benzoate from berries, particularly blackberries, potassium sorbate from the mountain ash, papain, which is from papaya fruit, xanthan gum, which is kelp or seaweed, and tocopherol, vitamin E, fructose, and carmine, which is a colourer. And those are the main components in the stabilisation process.
We've taken a look at the chemistry of the aloe vera. We now have to look at the preparations which David has used with considerable success in his veterinary practice.
The main preparation I use is the oral stabilised gel. This often I use with my other treatments, maybe antibiotics. It's also very good for treating conditions affecting the immune system and again in the digestive system, and it will actually work in times when there's poor appetite as well as vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, and it balances all these problems. The actual doses we use, there is no real set amount. We tend to use a basic principle or a rule of thumb, as I often call it, and you'll find with these preparations, unlike a lot of other veterinary preparations, we tend to use them more frequently. In the smaller children's pets, such as fish, we'll often transfer them to a smaller bowl and we'll put 2 or 3 drops in twice a day. With the hamsters, the mice and the gerbils, it's half a ml twice or even 4 times a day. Rats, guinea pigs and rabbits, chinchillas, we will use 1 ml 2 to 4 times a day. The larger pets, like the cats, we will give them a total dose in the day of 20 ml, often split into 5 ml doses. Dogs have 60 ml a day, often at 15 ml a time. Horses, these need quite a large amount, 250 ml, often only given twice a day. Otherwise we will give 60 ml at a time. Cows also have 250 ml a day. Sheep and pigs, they will have 120 ml per day. For the younger animals like puppies, kittens, foals, we would use the lower doses. So for instance, in a kitten, we would give them 5 ml, in a foal 60 ml in a day. And those are the main doses we use orally. The actual topical preparations, these come as solutions, jellies, lotions, soaps and shampoos. There's also a tooth gel preparation. And these are used for conditions which particularly affect the skin, such as wounds, burns, insect bites, and all sorts of dermatitis and allergic conditions. What I'd like to do now is show you some examples of how aloe vera helps in treating cases in animals. The first one is a picture of a horse with a wound on its cannon bone. This wound was unsuturable, and so we had to treat it topically. First of all, it was cleaned with a shampoo containing aloe vera or a soap. This removed the debris and the dirt from the wound, and then we used the aloe jelly to pack the wound. I tend to pack it onto a melanin or a gelinette or some of the more modern sponge type dressings, and often these you can leave on for 2 or 3 days. The great benefits of aloe vera over other preparations is that you tend to get less granulation tissue, less proud flesh is formed, less white hair, and they heal quicker. The wounds normally heal in about 1/3 of the normal time. The second picture shows a horse's jaw, and this horse was actually bitten on both sides of its mandible by another horse. Once again, the wound was severely traumatized and you could not suture it. Instead, we had to once again persuade the owner to dress the wound with the jelly as many times a day as possible. It's very important, unlike our other normal topical preparations, that they are applied 3, 4, 5 times a day. This pig shows an extensive burn which was caused when it was in the weaner pool. Normally they have heaters in these pens, but they, unfortunately in this case, it got behind the heater and was burnt. This was a very extensive wound, and it's very, very difficult to treat these normally. You normally have to use long courses of antibiotics, but in this case the owner was able to spray it with the pure aloe vera over a 3 or 4 week period, and they got a very, very good heal. This is a picture of a dog a large breed, an Old English Mastiff in fact, which suffers from a typical condition seen in large breeds. They like to lie on hard, cold surfaces like lino and tiles, and they start to form calluses. And in this picture you can see the calluses on the elbow and the hock and the base of the tail. If you apply the jelly to these areas 3 or 4 times a day, you will find that you'll be able to soften up the callus and it would heal very quickly. Sometimes they become infected, and that's when we use the aloe propolis creams. Here we have another dog which has a small wound just above the base of its pads. You can always tell in certain breeds that they have problems in these areas because they start to lick the area, and this will change the colour of the hair. And you can see here that the hair's gone like brown in colour and it's dark in several areas. And what we have to do with these is to clip off the hair first of all so we can get down to the wound. Once again, it wasn't suturable, and so we had to use a topical preparation. First of all, we washed it off with an aloe soap, and then we used a pure formula like veterinary formula, and then we used the aloe jelly. And normally within 2 to 3 weeks these type of wounds will heal. This picture shows a horse's leg which is suffering from a tumour condition. In fact, in one study of 2,000 cases, 40% were sarcoids, which is what this was. This in fact was initially treated with a topical ointment which causes a lot of reaction in the area, and the actual tumour does tend to fall off. But then we were left with a very nasty wound which is difficult to heal. In this case, we applied the jelly to the wound 3 or 4 times a day, and as you can see from the next picture, we have a very good heal. We've got a nice granulation bed and new epithelialization, new skin coming in from the margins. Also in that study, they found that 20% of the tumours were papillomas. These are commonly seen in young horses. They're like warts on their faces. Often they will come off on their own in the springtime when they go out to grass, but if they won't, they are easy to remove by using the jelly. The other type of tumour seen are fibromas and melanomas. It cannot cure melanomas, but it certainly does help if they become infected or ulcerated, and it's a very, very good preparation in those sorts of conditions. Here we have a very common condition of the dog. It's a flea allergy eczema. You can see large areas of hair loss, redness, eczema where there's rubbing going on because of the pruritus. And these problems are very, very common, but you do have to remember that we always have to treat the cause in these cases. You need to actually get rid of the fleas, and to do this you'll need to use an insecticidal compound, but afterwards we need to heal the dermatitis and stop the itching. And the pure lotion and the jelly are excellent at removing this pruritus. And if we have a lot of infection, we tend to use the aloe propolis cream. This dog shows a common condition we've been seeing over the last few years. It's fox mange dermatitis. And you can see it on the margin of this dog's ear. It's a very itchy condition. It gets very scaly and it's very difficult to cure. Once again, we have to deal with the cause, so we need to use an insecticidal compound. Frequently these days they're actually injected with an Ivermectin solution, but following this up to get rid of the dermatitis and get rid of this crustiness, the jelly is excellent to break this down. It also helps with the itch and it clears the bacterial infection. Horses in the spring and summer frequently suffer from a condition called sweet itch. This is caused by a biting midge called culicoides. It loves to travel down the long hairs of the mane and the tail and gets down to the skin where it feeds on blood and serum oozing from the skin from the inflammatory reaction it causes. This is a very difficult condition to cure and is often a chronic condition which goes on year after year. If you use a fly repellent to prevent the culicoides getting at the horse in the first place, or you keep them in during dawn and dusk, that's the first step. Then you need to actually treat the pruritic condition because it is very, very itchy. They'll rub against the stable doors and do a lot of damage to their skin. And to this end, you'll find that the pure aloe lotion or the jelly will be excellent at removing the debris and getting these wounds to heal. It is often very good to wash these areas off first with the aloe soaps or aloe shampoos. As I've said before, it is very important that the areas are clean before you use the concentrated jellies. In this other slide, you will see the case about 3 weeks later, and the hair is totally regrown and the sweet itch is totally under control. And as long as the horse is kept out of the way of the midges at dawn and dusk, and you will find that this condition will not come back, and if it does, you can keep it under control with the aloe vera jelly. Here we have a dog with chronic allergic dermatitis. This dog in fact had this condition for over 10 years. As you can see, there's a lot of redness and inflammation. The skin is thickened all along its abdomen and its armpits. It had been treated with topical preparations of steroids. It had tablets of steroids and injections of steroids. We've now taken the dog off those preparations and are treating it topically with aloe vera lotions and jellies, and we now have the condition under control. But we slowly have to wean off the corticosteroid tablets because you cannot stop them suddenly. These lambs are suffering from contagious pustular dermatitis, also known as ORF. It's actually caused by a virus, but unfortunately it becomes secondary infected with bacteria, and this spreads then all over the face of the lamb. Also, unfortunately, it then is spread to the udders of the ewes. They become very sore and they stop the lambs from suckling, and often the lambs will then starve to death. In the past, treatments have not been very successful. We've used antibiotic injections, sprays of antibiotics. I've now been using the aloe lotion as a spray and the jelly, and have had great success if this is used once or twice during the period. This rabbit shows a common condition that we get with them, where they have overgrowth of their incisor teeth. This pushes their jaws slightly apart so they can't masticate their food, and they dribble and drool down over the fronts of their jaw. This causes the fur to be burnt off, and you get a severe dermatitis, as you can see here. Now, what we had to do in this case was to give the little rabbit a general anaesthetic so we could trim his teeth off so they now meet, and then we had to treat the dermatitis. And to do that, we clean off the area with an aloe shampoo or soap, apply the veterinary jelly to the area, and once again you need to apply this 4 or 5 times a day. And as you can see here now, the condition is totally healed and the fur is regrown. This was about 2 to 3 weeks after the initial picture was taken. When I first saw this horse, even I was surprised by the amount of pus and discharge that we had. In fact, what had happened, this horse had been jumping some hedges, and a foreign body must have gone up into its groin area, and over a period of several days an abscess had built up and it finally burst. And in fact you could get 2 fists up inside the hole on this poor horse. Initially we cleared it out by using a hose pipe, and then we applied veterinary lotion. This was applied 5 or 6 times a day, and finally over a period of 4 weeks it healed, and now you can see the horse which has made a full recovery from this terrible abscess. Calves frequently suffer from diarrhea, and aloe vera is an excellent preparation to help with this condition. Often I use it in combination with antibiotics. It does help to balance them and normally will clear the diarrhea within a couple of days. A common problem we find in dairy cows is retention of the afterbirths. In the past it's been difficult to get the afterbirths to come away. We've had to use antibiotics and hormone preparations to encourage it to come away. I now use an infusion of 200 ml of aloe vera gel into the uterus, and within 24 hours it is usually possible to remove the afterbirth. Dairy cows suffer particularly from mastitis. This is a bacterial infection that they get in their udders, and in the past we've had to use large doses of antibiotics to prevent and treat this condition. I have had a lot of success in infusing their udders with 20 to 30 ml of aloe vera gel and rubbing jelly into the outside of the udders. Competition horses frequently suffer from strains to their tendons. As you can see here, you can see the inflammation and redness and swelling of this chronically inflamed tendon. This horse had actually strained this tendon on several occasions. What we normally do is to cool it down first of all. We will cold hose it. I now use crushed up frozen aloe gel wrapped in a towel and applied as a pressure pack. and this will not only cool it to decrease the inflammation, also it actually acts with its anti-inflammatory properties to remove the inflammation. You do this several times a day, 4 times a day if you can, and repeat this until the heat goes out of these tendons. Once the heat has gone, then it's useful to use a heat lotion to counteract the coldness. And now you can see the horse 4 weeks later when the swelling has gone out of the tendon and the horse is going back into light exercise. We frequently get problems with the mouth conditions, and this is one of a horse which in fact had fractured one of its canine teeth. You get a lot of inflammation and swelling around the area and the gum, and normally we'd have to remove this tooth. Once the tooth is removed, you can pack the hole with the jelly. You can also treat the gums with the jelly. It is excellent also for ulcers in the mouth, inflammation of the pharynx, and problems with receding gums. We have seen that aloe vera can help with many conditions which affect animals, but in fact it is not the cure-all. It's had a name for being the potted physician, the medical plant, miracle plant in the past, but in fact it only works mainly on 2 areas in the body. It works on the epithelial tissue and the immune system. It's important also that one always seeks medical or veterinary advice in these conditions, because although they can look superficial on the surface, they can often have more sinister problems underneath. It's also important to note that unlike some of the topical preparations we normally use, they need to be used more frequently, and if you take oral preparations, they also need to be taken more often. They can be added to the diets of dogs and cats and other animals, and they're often taken very readily. They are all based on a nutritional plant which definitely has health benefits for both people and their animals, and what is very important, there are no known toxic side effects of this plant.
Now you've had the chance to listen to the information in this video, we hope it'll encourage you to use the properties of this amazing plant to help medical conditions without the side effects of traditional medicines.